Unavailable.
Hi everybody, it's Sam. So, I wanted to tell you about my day. It actually ended up not being as anxious as I thought about everything. First of all, the power only went out to 12, so right before we left it went out, and then we got home at 2 and it was on again. So, that was good. Transportation was very anxious for me because they came at like 10:30 and I was supposed to be there at 11, and they picked someone up and then they dropped us off, but it was like just in time, and that really bothered me. So we figured that since paratransit is so bad, really no time is good, and even Saturday probably will have problems, but it might be easier. Like I said, the weekday mornings are hard, and then definitely if we were doing afternoon session between 12 and 2, which is when she has, we would probably run into, on the way home, all the day programs for people with disabilities leaving and having to pick up all them. So she has Saturday times, so we're going to try Saturday at noontime, and hopefully that will work. I mean, the problem is there's so much construction and there's so much traffic, and at least on Saturdays, hopefully we'll miss the construction itself going on. So that was the only really hairy part for me, was the transportation aspect. And then came home, and because of the power outage, Dr. Cleary did not want to come in and work in the dark, so he wasn't in, and I was really happy about that. And the only last thing I need to get through is getting my meds without Jess, because Jess is at sleep study to get her apnea mask hopefully recommended and hopefully gotten this time. She's gone like 3 different times. So I've had less anxiety than I thought, which was really good. So the intake, it went really well. Megan Frank is very nice. She has very good instincts with people. She really listens. She really validates where you are, even if she disagrees with you. And she is just very sweet, very personable, is really with you, laughs at what you say, and is appropriately horrified when you're horrified, and, very in connection. She has had a lot of experience. I tracked her down on LinkedIn, and the person I found, I said, "Are you the person that worked at Timberline Knolls and the Eating Recovery Center?" She's like, "Yeah, that's me." And I was like, "Yep, I found you." So she actually did work at Timberline Knolls a few years ago, and she works now at Eating Recovery Center, which is a Chicago-based thing, and they do like all sorts of eating disorder, like outpatient. And she works on the residential area, which is like doing check-ins with residents, running groups, things like that. She has not done like individual therapy stuff yet, so I guess that's why she's going, pursuing her internship here. She's pursuing her license, but she has got a lot of experience working at Timberline Knolls, which is a really nice residential community, center, and they have all sorts of different people that work there, and they're very well known. She has, the Eating Recovery Center. She works with a lot of people with a lot of different issues, not just eating disorders, but, trauma, depression, anxiety, self-harm, different things like that. And she is just very, she knows, what she, who she is, I think, in a therapy. She definitely is very passionate about what she does. I can tell that just from meeting with her. So I am really happy about that. I couldn't be happier. You can tell that she's, I haven't really talked much about her with the theories that she likes to use, except for the internal family systems a little bit. But I definitely am impressed with just how personable she is and how confident she is, and her instincts seem really good. And her experience seems really good for someone, in her development as a therapist, I would say. She reminds me of someone from Lesley University, like that quality of already having that quality of training and supervision, certainly. So I got in there, and I remember the place from when I saw this woman Annie. You have to go through it's a building. You go in, you go up this flight of stairs, and then there's a waiting room with like a couch and stuff. And Jess just hung out on the couch. They had classical music playing, and we went into a room, and it had like a couch and hardwood floor, and I just sat on the couch, and she sat on the little desk area. My table had like a tissue box in a basket. I also had some rocks in a basket, and a little turtle. And then I asked if they had like stress balls, and she had a little stress ball brain thing. And also on the back of the couch there was a blanket and stuffed animals. So they actually had stuffies, which I was so impressed about. I'm like, do you work with kids? She's like, no, just there for people's comfort. And it was just funny because I went in there, I'm like, why is it so hot? I'm like, is there a lamp like emanating really high heat? And she had like a space heater on. I'm like, seriously? It was so hot in there. And I'm like, don't you know heat rises and it's not even really cold out, like at all? So the first thing I did was have her turn on the air conditioning and open a window. So then we sat down, and I tried to let her, lead the intake and not just go off in my crazy, anxious way. I know I was really hyped up and, just kind of all over the place because I really wanted to get my points across. So she had me sign, I brought in all the paperwork that I was prepared with, the stuff from Clayton, and, we signed all the releases for staff at Clayton, so Lakeisha, Robert, and then she signed one specifically for Dr. Cleary, who's my psychiatrist, for Chris, who's the director of nursing, for my mom, and for Jess. So we signed all those things. She filled out forms as we were talking. And so we got through all that initial paperwork. And then she was sort of asking me about, what's been going on and how did things start. And I explained about the panic attack and about the first episode of dissociation and about the first feelings I had of like feeling like my hands were not attached to my body or like someone was doing hand over hand. Typing or touching things. I explained about the sensory issues and the communication issues, and I explained, of course, about the being taken over and the different things that are taking me over, the different people. She also saw the videos, which was a huge step that she'd already seen them. She believes, like Dr. Cleary does, that they are parts of me, and that, parts of you in this internal family systems, if they don't feel heard, they will do really extreme things to be heard and act in a really chaotic way. And once you learn how to like sort of control them and get them to say, hey, like stop doing that, then you can, feel more content and, more in control of your mind, basically. So it's about control, and, I have been developing that. I think it was hard for her to understand, though she didn't, she didn't, her feelings were obvious, but not so obvious that it was clear she was just totally not hearing a word I was saying. She disagrees, obviously, like the rest of the world, but except for my friends. Betty and Lisa are awesome. Thank you for sticking by me forever and ever. That this is some sort of bad energetic thing, and that I need to protect myself from it. And I don't know if there's not research, but I wish I could send her something to say, like, this is true, like, this happens to people, and this is what you do. Like, you do not engage with this stuff, you don't talk to it, anything. So I'm going to ask them, like, can I send something, or, like, maybe later in our work, like, if she can talk to my friend Betty, who's, like, awesome, and has helped me for years, and has helped me, and can actually, like, sense energetically what's going on, so she knows, and I trust her so much on this. So, I trust her most of everyone, and her friend Lisa is very good. We're going to do some journey work thing, but now that I'm seeing Megan, I'm probably going to let that, go for a little while, but she definitely would listen. And, so that was good. But, they both said the same things, stay connected to who you are and remember who you are and everything else, and set an intention that you want to be left alone and everything else, and imagine walls around you and all these different things. And so I told Megan about all of this, and she listened, and she did listen, and I did listen to her, and it's a hard conversation to have. It's a very hard conversation to have, to try to tell someone, this is what I feel like this is, when what I feel like this is like not a very understood or popular opinion, and not even an opinion I would have previous to when all this happened. Like, I'm not a very spiritual person, energetic. I mean, everyone has energy, but I don't know anything about controlling it or using it or whatever. It's only been since I met my friend Betty, like years ago, that I learned about it, and then she wrote a book about ghosts and, shamanic things, and said that people could be haunted. And so what happened is, like, all these things were going on to somebody, and it wouldn't even, know that it was because this person was like this ghost that is someone that has not passed away, because they are holding on to something from, this world, and they are attracted to a living person, and so they kind of just hang around that person and attach to them and get their strength from them and kind of live out whatever they're living out, but attached to a living person. That's kind of my understanding of it, and it's how I feel when I'm going through this. It's like I feel like these things are like, hey, I don't have a body, I don't have a mind, I'm just going to use you and like do my thing. So anyway, it wasn't something that I ever even would have thought of until I read the book, and I know her, and I was like, this is just weird. And she spoke to me in those states of whatever was going on. She saw writing when I would just write. I said, okay, I'm going to write everything that I hear, or write everything that I feel, and my hands would feel all detached, and then I would write, and she's like, yes, I understand this is not good, and so ever since then she's been giving me the right advice. And then ever since Dr. Cleary said no dissociative disorder, although that might be up for debate, the staff really kicked in on saying, well, now we can do this behavioral aspect and keep them from interacting with the outside world. So it's a really hard conversation to have when you have these thoughts that are real. When at least I'm being honest, I'm saying I really don't feel like I'm experiencing something that's of this reality, and so but they think it's another thing, and she listened. She did listen. She didn't interrupt me, and she made it so that I didn't feel like I had to totally be defensive. I did hear her out, which was her point of view, which is what I just said. And so we were talking back and forth about it, and I said, we can agree to disagree. There's a lot we can talk about. In therapy, and just having a place where I can really unload and, talk about what's going on with me. Although I also did give her the warning about not establishing too much of an attachment because of being told that that's not healthy for me. But and so we were talking about goals, and I was like, well, it's really hard because I think with what's going on with me, we're on opposite sides of the fence here, where, I do not believe that it's parts of me, nor do I believe anyone should be talking to it, including her, which is what she wanted to do. She wanted to speak to them, just her, and I didn't have to. And I was like, well, that's not going to work, because whatever this is feeds off connection. I've really discovered that. So, no, I think the only person that should be talking to whatever this is someone like Betty or her friends, or someone trained in how to talk to, an energetic thing and get it to leave. I think that's the only person that should be talking to that person, to that thing, because it's so powerful and you need to know what you're doing. And so I said, no, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do anything except continue to keep this gone and continue to build my resources, which she again said, this thing is about looking at yourself and looking at inner conflicts and sort of representing them as different parts, and then kind of developing a core sense of who you are that'll always be there no matter what's going on in your mind. So that's fine to understand. And so she said, well, why don't maybe our first goal is trying to find some middle ground where, okay, you don't have to believe it's parts of you, but it might be something else besides outside forces or energetic things. And I don't know how we're going to get there, because for me, the biggest thing about the parts thing is I understand everyone has parts. And I understand, even if my mind is really creative and wants to name, my inner child Honey, even though I already have an inner child part, I feel, that's fine. But it's the lack of awareness and the feeling of being blocked from when this takes over, I'm just gone. And so we were talking about that, because I'm like, well, if this was true and I had and these were parts of me, it would mean that I am multiple, that I have more than one person, more than one state of consciousness of being in my mind. And she said, well, what if it wasn't a separate state of consciousness? And I was like, well, it is for me now, because I am in a different state of being when this happens than when it's not. And she's like, so how did Dr. Clary rule out a dissociative disorder? I'm like, I have no idea. So that was the thing that she I'm like, definitely try to get a hold of him. Like, I would like to hear his thoughts. Because the only thing that I really remember is him saying, these are parts of you and you're not dissociating enough for it to be a dissociative disorder. So that's, she's going to try to talk to him. I don't know how that works. If she's going to only be able to leave a message through nursing, or if she can actually speak to him. I hope she can, and just really get his take on it. We were talking about diagnosis, and she said, the only purpose for diagnosis to her point of view is insurance. Other than that, it's just looking at you as a person and what's going on. But I also said, I really would like something to be put in my chart here to validate that I'm going through these really new, things that doesn't just encompass depressive disorder, which is the only thing that's on my chart. And so, I want that validation. And she agreed. She's like, I think it's terrible that this happened, in front of a clinician's face, and he did nothing, and no one did anything. There was no communication. Nothing was written down. And then you came to this new place, and they're just like, oh, I'll take your word for it. If you say you have alters, whatever. And then nothing was put down there. So and I think she knows, because she's working in residential, where, the paperwork and the chart means everything. And she's like, yeah, absolutely. You need something put down, based on wherever, you go next, or whoever sees the records, whether it's in the facility or not in the facility. Jobs change so much, and you need something, put down. And, she was just as horrified as I was about how I was treated. And, she really said, you have a lot of strengths and a lot of inner resources to cope with what you did and, to get to this point. And she said, I am confident I can help you face this in however way we do it. And, I was really impressed, and I felt really good about it. And I felt really good about how she handled the huge thing for me of people saying, well, if you don't think it's parts of you, then you're just denying this, and it has to be this way. And not really taking into account my feelings of what I feel like it is, which Cleary wasn't really taking into account at all. And staff is kind of like in between, I think. So that was a really good approach. And I'm really happy. I felt good coming out of there. Like I said, it was a very good meeting. It was a very good start. And I'm looking forward to continuing. She says, write in your journal every day. She wants me to create a therapy journal and write in it just anything that comes up in my head. Any weird things like that if I experience anything, like, and I told her about the recordings I make to tell whatever this is, you need to leave. And you can never come back. And if I notice you again, you will keep being told you need to leave. Something that happened last night that really bothered me and worried me was, in the past, one of my symptoms around this was I would feel like someone was telling me words to say, almost. Like, I would have a way I wanted to say a sentence, and then some other words would come into my head, and it would change the sentence, obviously. And it just wouldn't be how I wanted to say it, but it would be like these words were just like in my head, as if someone was, giving me these thoughts and saying, like, you need to say this again, like talking through me, whatever. So, and that would be really specific words, like just words I would never say, or like with the little kid, just like made up words like jigger and job netter and whatever, just like made up stuff, or with one of the ones that hasn't been around in ages is this 19-year-old Jenny, who I guess is like a theater person and thinks that they are playing me in a play. And so they're all about plays and whatever. So I had done my first video, and then I had planned to take my bath and be in my pajamas, which I was for the next video. And I told, I'm like, okay, I'm going to do that. But in my head, I heard like costume change. And I'm like, why would I ever say that? And I was like, oh no, it's her. That's a Jenny word. Anything about costumes and masks and acting and singing and the stage and the, whatever is all her. Because I've seen the different writings. And Yeah, so that really worried me because I hadn't had that happen in a long time. And I was really worried about it. And I just talked about it and I said this happened. And I didn't ask her like what I should do because, I know what to do. Just being able to say it happened was good. And I said, well, you know what? Of course, I'm going to do the same thing. I will get her like I get all the other ones. I'll just say, you know what? Jenny, you might be a good actress. Go play somebody somewhere else. And it's not going to happen here. And not in my head. Sorry. This is closed. The stage is, the acting stage is closed at Sam Nelson. So I just think I need to do that. It shouldn't be that hard because she hasn't been around in ages and the other ones haven't been around since Sunday. But however, we were going to we were walking down the stairs and I asked Jess what was on the bulletin boards because there's all this bulletin boards and I felt the paper. And she read one of the quotes, and it was something about Dr. Seuss and there's no one youer than you and whatever stuff. And I guess the child thing really liked the youer word because it would be like the kind of word she would make up. So one minute I was on the stairs and she had read the thing and I knew that she read it. The next minute I was standing outside and I'm like, okay, something happened. Like I'll know when I'm in one place and then I'm in another place, obviously, something happened. And she's like, oh yeah, well, the little girl liked the word you were and, came out and everything. And it was totally a test. It's totally a test. Here I was physically in a different place from Clayton. I'd never been there before. And, it's like, okay, well, we're not in front of staff. We're not in front of Jess. We're not in Sam's room. Can I speak? Can I talk here? And whatever. And the answer is no. You may not talk here and not talk anywhere. So it's, and that's why I have to have cooperation around no one can speak to them because they will seek out that connection and they will continue to grow stronger from that connection and that'll keep them keeping me, hostage. So those are my thoughts and I think she handled it well and I feel confident that we can work together. I have a lot I need to talk about and it'll be nice to have a place to do it. And I think she really is also into talking with the Clayton team and working with them. So I'm really happy. My next session is Saturday the 28th. She will be getting in touch with Lakeisha this week. She'll be getting in touch with my mom this week and they'll be doing the feed directly so I don't have to worry about that. So it was a really amazing intake and I feel just amazing and hopeful and I wish this had happened 9 months ago. But yeah, I don't know what's going on up there. But yeah, so that has been, it was a great day today and I wish that I had this happen, the first month or like Jess and I were talking about if I had the psychiatrist that she and I had for a few years at Albany Care, I would have had this solved like the first week or at least some sort of idea on it. And I'll be interested to hear what, and again, diagnosis is not, it doesn't matter if they say I have a whatever disorder, I'm still going to work with her in the same way I would work with her anyways. But I'm just curious, what constitutes a dissociative disorder and what he feels is like too high or too low amounts of dissociation to, constitute that. But especially because he hasn't really been in practice that many years. So yeah, anyways, that's it. And I will post this and then I will continue writing.
My movie, help, web, stop.